HARK, we are here. It is time for yet another episode of Star Wars Unlimited. Today, we have lots of previews from various different sources. We also have the 1025 FFG live stream to go over, and we'll have a couple different things going on as a result of that. And it's very interesting to see the stuff that we've got going on. So, we also have art that comes from that same stream. So you know the process: previews, art, and then the stream recap, and then my thoughts at the end, so on and so forth. It's all the usual things that you get here at RybackStun. We are going to start the previews out of order because I am very excited to bring to you this preview that was shown to us through the Unlimited FFG Twitter account. It's a leader that I have been very excited to see, and it is also a leader that I don't want to say called, but I called her ability, and you'll see why in just a second. This is Hera Syndulla, Spectre 2. Apologies once again to people who follow me on Twitter. I unfortunately named her as Spectre 1, even though Spectre 2 was floating in my head. Command Heroism. She's a leader, of course. Rebel Twi'lek Spectre. Actually, one of the only species keywords in the game so far. Off the top of my head, it's Twi'lek and Wookiee are the only two that I remember. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. Ignore the aspect penalty on Spectre cards you play. Epic action: if you control 6 or more resources, deploy this leader. She's a 4/6 on the other side. She's rare, number 8 out of 252 in SOR, and her other side is 6 cost, quote unquote, command heroism, ground leader units, 4 power, 6 health, Rebel Twi'lek Spectre. Ignore the aspect penalty on Spectre cards you play, so that way no matter whether she's leader or unit, you ignore the aspect penalty on Spectre cards. On attack, you may give an experience token to another unique unit. So Hera is here to play. She will be the leader of your Spectre deck, and right now we do have Spectres in each color, including this leader, so each aspect including this leader. Hera being command, Sabine being aggression, Ezra being cunning, the card that I previewed, and then Kanan being vigilance. We're still missing technically a regular Hera unit, which we'll probably get, a Zeb unit, a Chopper unit, and most likely a Ghost unit. I believe those 4 will come in this set to complete the Spectre strategy. We don't know the power level of it just yet, but I do think a Rebel Spectre deck is going to be very good. A lot of people on the Discord are trying to build command with Hera utilizing the energy conversion lab. That's a possibility. I think, though, for the highest level of strategy to make sure your Spectres stick on the board and also make it so that you don't have a lot of things to go up against, I think actually Command Vigilance is going to be the Spectre archetype for what you can get moving forward, because that gives you things like Vanquish and Takedown for removing units. It gives you Repair for healing up your units that you want to see on the board. It gives you access to a couple of different Sentinels that are going to be very important on the ground. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Wing Trooper, and then if you really want to use it, the Honor Guard. I am not a huge fan of the Honor Guard, but I know some people will be, and especially if you can stick a Repair on it to get it back to its Sentinel. There's a lot of interesting things you can do with Hera for Spectres if you go Command Vigilance. But we'll have to see what the other Spectres look like and what the rest of the set looks like to make sure that that would potentially be the best avenue for play. But I'm super excited for Hera. Hera is now in my top list of leaders that I'm going to be playing right off the bat. Boba, Sabine, Hera. We'll have to see what's going forward. There is a image out there of the Vigilance villainy leader. It's very pixelated. It's been zoomed in but not enhanced, because that's not how enhancements work. If that leader is who I think it is, and I'm pretty sure I know who it is, that is another leader that I will be building a deck for, because she is one of my favorite characters in Star Wars video games. And if you don't know, I'll say it here, I am basically money bet certain that the Vigilance villainy leader is Iden Versio, not Grand Admiral Thrawn. And the reason why is because the image, which I can't show just because it's in a state of trying to find it honestly, is not Thrawn. It's very clearly not Thrawn. So, but speaking of Hera, I'm excited to build her. I think that she's going to be a very fun character. She's got decent stats. The fact that she can give an experience token to another unique unit means that with her, you can have her help build, kind of like Tarkin does, your unique units. And Hera Spectre specifically is probably going to be a unique units deck. which is interesting. It's pretty cool. So I'm excited to build Hera. I hope you are too. Our next previews come by way of Max Tapera over on YouTube, link below. And Max got 2 really cool cards to preview in Command. And our first card here is the Seasoned Shore Trooper. 2 cost, Command Villainy, ground unit, 2 power, 3 health Imperial Trooper. While you control 6 or more resources, this unit gets +2/+0. It is a common, 81 out of 252 in SOR. Shore Trooper is one of my favorite designs of Stormtrooper that we've seen in a long time. Rogue One did a really good job of showing off some really cool Stormtrooper designs while still keeping the normal Stormtroopers within the scope of the battles. You saw them on Jeddah, and then you also have the Stormtroopers on Scarif, but then you have the Death Troopers, and then you have the Shore Troopers. But this card's actually really cool. A 2 cost, 2/3 Imperial Trooper by itself, already really good. It's a round 1 play. It allows you to stick a body on the board so that you can attack on the next turn. But this is also now a late game card, especially if you're playing something like Tarkin or Krennic, which gives it boosts throughout the entirety of the game. It's harder to fit this with Krennic just because it has 3 health, and damaging it by itself or taking a tiny bit of damage is going to be difficult. But with Tarkin putting the experience tokens on and the next card you'll see, this thing can get pretty chonk. So Seasoned Shore Trooper, excellent card. I think this is absolutely, it's a 3 of in every Imperial deck, it's a 3 of in every Trooper deck, and I think it's probably going to be a 3 of in every Command Villainy deck because of the fact that it is a cheap card to just plop on the board. And this is also probably going to be a limited staple because, again, as with the 97th Legion, being able to get to those higher levels of resources in games in limited, because you don't have the full stock of constructed resources, you're going to be going into games later and later with draft and sealed and pre-release sealed. So fantastic card, really cool. Let's see what the next one is. Our next card, same source, is another Imperial ground unit, but this one isn't an attacker. He's a buffer. General Taji, Concerned Commander, 2 cost, Command Villainy, ground unit, 2 power, 2 health, Imperial Official. When played, give an experience token to each of up to 3 Trooper units. Uncommon, 80 out of 252 SOR. Imperial Enabler. You don't really want to play this round 1, even though he costs a round 1 play. But what you do want to do is on round 4 or 5, or even 3, when you have multiple Imperial units, Trooper units on the board, you want to play Taji so that way you can get the extra bonuses, or play a cheaper cost Trooper and then Taji on your next action so you can continue to give them experience. Taji and Tarkin go together hand in hand, both leader and regular unit Tarkin, because if you're playing all Imperial Troopers except for the things that buff your Imperial Troopers, you can use your unit Tarkin to pull the cards off the top of your deck in that combo, and then leader Tarkin just continues to add token. So Taji's a really, really interesting card. He doesn't need to stick around long because it's just a when played effect, so you don't really have to worry too much about any type of sacrificial anything. You just play him and go. Now, if you are playing the Command Vigilance deck, whether it's Tarkin or Krennic, and you are using the Death Trooper, this is actually a very good target for Death Trooper because it means that you're not really attacking with Taji altogether. You're basically paying 2 costs to get up to 3 experience tokens and potentially a body. But with Death Trooper, if you play Death Trooper after this, you can end up getting rid of Taji to, if you have discard shenanigans later, to pick it out of your discard pile and not lose any of your real board presence because Taji's not threatening basically anything at that point. Interesting style here. I do like the Imperial Army moves forward and buffs and buffs and buffs and attacks style gameplay. I think that troopers are going to be very popular within the first set and within the first meta, as it were, quote unquote. Set 1 metas are kind of terrible in general, but at the same time, it'll be interesting to see how players come to their conclusions on what is going to be good when they actually get the cards in their hand and are able to play them IRL. So I like Taji a lot. It fits a style of pseudo white weenies, even though there is no white in this game, that allows you to just flood the board with a bunch of things and then just buff. So combine Taji with Tarkin leader, with general veers, and a couple of other buffers, and you have a lot of options to be able to just push out your troopers to make them stronger and stronger, such as the 97th Legion, such as the Cell Block Guard, such as the Death Troopers, such as, if you're playing aggression, the Death Star Stormtrooper, and also 97th Legion. Next, as part of the stream that we had this past week, the FFG live stream talking about competitive OP, Xander, our guest host at the time, was able to showcase two of his favorite cards in SOR. So we're going to go over these individually. The first one, I think they're both very good, but the first one is really good, and it makes me hyped that Xander likes these types of things because I do too. We have here the Green Squadron Awing. It is a 2-cost aggression heroism space unit, 1 power, 3 health, rebel vehicle fighter. It has raid 2. So while it's attacking, it's +2/+0. It is a common. It is number 141 out of 252 in SOR. Before we go on to talk about what this does and why it's so cool, on the left here you see this. This is not a hyperspace variant. This is an organized play variant, part of the weekly kit. So you get to see that red border there. You have the little indicator on the bottom that showcases what it is. This one's number 2 out of 20, but it's still ultimately the same thing. A little A-Wing shooting its blasters, flying off a Star Destroyer. So I'm going to go for the bad, and then we're going to go for the good, right? The bad, this is a Green Squadron A-Wing in aggression. It should have been a Green Squadron A-Wing in command, just because that was a cool opportunity for them to take Red Squadron Aggression, Gold Squadron Cunning, Blue Squadron Vigilance, and Green Squadron Command. I do not like using the color names for the aspects, but this would have been a cool thing to fit. Now, that's just aesthetic. That's just me being pedantic about stuff, right? Justifiably so. This card is bonkers. A space unit that costs 2, that will survive most, with the exception of like Imperial Interceptor, most space-based removal. You can potentially drop this on the board, and then on the next round go in for 3, and then any other boosters, right? And if you're running a Vehicles Matter deck, whether that's Command Aggression or just Aggression with extra vehicles in it, these add up. They definitely add up. They're not going to be giving too many hits on the crackback, but they're going to be pumping 3 damage into whatever they're hitting whenever they end up attacking. And I think that's a really cool style for this deck. So mixing in, if you go Green Squadron A-Wing on one round, and on the next round you drop a wing leader and then attack with the Green Squadron A-Wing, this thing's coming in for 5. This is a fantastic card. I love it. I think it's great. Like I said, should have been in command, but that's just because the joke was there and it was cool. But otherwise, this is a fantastic card. It's probably a 3 of in any rebel deck that you run that can run aggression. It's a 3 of in any vehicle deck that's running vehicles that's aggression heavy. It's just a really good card if you can fit it in to your strategy and your deck building. Our next card from the FFG live stream is the Vigilance unit. That's pretty interesting. We have the Academy Defense Walker, 6 cost, Vigilance Villainy ground units, 5 power, 5 health, Imperial Vehicle Walker. It has Sentinel. When played, give an experience token to each friendly damaged unit. Common, 37 out of 252 SOR. This unit is okay. There's a lot of really good things about it, but to get its maximum utility out of it, you have to be running a deck that's wanting to see your units be damaged. And a lot of those are going to be Sentinels, which I think is actually a decent strategy if you're running Vigilance, because Vigilance does have a lot of those strategies of trying to get units onto the board that have Sentinel with big butts or have grit that can take the damage to be able to do so, much like the Rugged Survivors. Academy Defense Walker is a little below the power curve for its power to cost ratio, but you do get that bonus based upon having damaged units. So this slots right into a Krennic deck. I think that Kevin of Roll On Gaming is already watering at the mouth, ready to put this into his Krennic deck. In terms of actually playing this card, the combination of the stats and the Sentinel is where I'm like, maybe not necessarily. You could stick an Entrenched on this, make it an 8/8. You could stick a Resilient on this, make it a 6/6. But you're paying extra power or extra resources to be able to do that. This is going to be a good card in Limited because a 6 cost, drop a Sentinel 5/5. That's going to be hard to clear in one action, right? But something about giving an experience token to each friendly damaged unit is where I'm like, do I want to spend 6 cost on this? And I think it depends on the deck and your likelihood of being able to actually do that, right? If you're going up against somebody that's using Fallen Lightsaber that's dealing 1 damage to all your stuff, yeah, Academy Defense Blocker is going to be one of the best cards you could possibly put in your deck, because all of a sudden your board just got +1/+1 because your opponent decided to use Fallen Lightsaber, right, on a Force user. Overall, I can't really explain it. This does not spark ignition in my mind, right? I'm not thinking, oh, I could put this in this deck, I could put this in this deck, even though I just explained it about a couple of different decks you could put it in. It's not sparking, I want to play this every single time I see it. It's a cool card. It's from Rebels. All Rebels content is great. I'm happy with it. Something feels off. I can't really explain it. If you can, leave a comment. Our last preview for this week comes by way of the Unlimited FFG Twitter, and it is our last Aggression Month preview from Unlimited FFG, the Twitter account. It's an upgrade. It's an interesting card. We have had rumors of this card existing, so let's just dive right into it. We have here Infiltrator's Skill. 1 cost aggression only upgrade. Attached unit gains Saboteur, so when it attacks, ignore Sentinel and defeat the defender's shields. +1 power, +1 health. Infiltrator Skill learned. It is a common number 166 out of 252 in SOR. You get a nice little image here of Jyn Erso in her Imperial Security Force disguise, whatever they want to call it. It was like genuinely a combination between Special Forces and a Death Star Trooper. So it looked cool. She's cool. I like her. Anyway, point being, this is an interesting card for what it represents and what it presents to an opponent. For 1 cost, you can basically throw an experience token that also attaches Saboteur to the unit. Saboteur is a strong skill because it allows you to bypass your opponent's defender units, and also if somebody has a low health thing that you need to take care of, but it's been shielded, your Saboteur goes, you know what? Pew! Shoot that shield off, right? So at face value, this seems like something that's incredibly strong. It's really not. And the reason why is that it's the same reason why some of the other things that you can do in the game that seem really cool end up not being as cool because of the interruption factor. When I mean interruption, I don't mean like instance. I mean, you play Infiltrator's Skill on your unit, your opponent now has an opportunity on their action during their turn to interact with whatever you just put Infiltrator's Skill on, whether that's exhausting the unit, dealing a ton of damage to it to get rid of it off the board, straight up defeating it, returning it to your hand. Any of those types of things are going to disrupt what you can do with Infiltrator's Skill. So with that aside, I think this is actually a very strong contender in Limited, whether that's draft or sealed, more sealed than draft realistically, because again, you're not going to have the same level of constructed tools in limited gameplay that you would for constructed. But Infiltrator's Skill, unless your opponent has no responses to your actions, it's costed appropriately. It has a decent skill on it. It just doesn't provide the timing you need to be able to make it successful. If you throw this on like a 7-drop and your opponent waylays that 7-drop back to your hand, you're SOL, right? You could attach this to something like Mace Windu to be able to Saboteur on that next attack after he comes out, Saboteur down shields or just straight up attack a base. But again, your opponent can just say, cool, I'm going to just defeat your units or whatever comes the situation. It's a little bit harder if you put this on a leader because there's a lot of non-leader clauses on removal, but you can still exhaust leaders. You can still deal enough damage to them to remove them from the board. There's a lot of different ways to clear out leaders. Not as many as other things, but still. The point being, Infiltrator's Skill is a competent card, but I don't see it being run in every aggression deck. And definitely not 3 of in every aggression deck. Upgrades are a tough point because you have to understand the dynamic between the alternating action economy and how upgrades attach to characters. It's a cool card. I think it's going to be useful. I just don't think it's an automatic best card in the game, right? It has been a long time since we've had a segment like this. We're going to go through these pretty quickly because they were pieces of art given to us inside the competitive organized play article dropped by FFG after they did the stream. Link to that below. 3 images here of art we haven't seen yet, and it kind of informs us on a couple of different things going forward. So, first off, we have the main man himself, Emperor Palpatine, sitting there on his throne in front of the window on Death Star 2. We've seen before that some of the art pieces we've gotten have not used the full piece of art. However, given what we see here, unless this is like supposed to be a super static event that just showcases evil, I fully believe this is going to be the image used on our Emperor Palpatine leader. Because we've already seen the unit where he's like, and he does the unlimited power lightning bolts, right? Force lightning. But this is the, I am the leader of the Galactic Empire and I'm prepared to destroy everyone and everything that I need to, which if you follow the story after Return of the Jedi, he does actually try that, even though he's dead. So this is a really good piece of art here. Expect this as a thumbnail in the future. You don't know what it's exactly going to look like, but be prepared for the horror. We have this piece of art, which is really cool. It's got the little Fantasy Flight logo on the side. This is your main characters from A New Hope: Vader, Leia, Han, and Luke. I almost wish they would have used this piece of art here on the unit Han. A lot of these are a little bit more photorealistic than the actual pieces of art that we've gotten on some of the cards, but this is a great piece of art that is utilized on the website to showcase Star Wars Unlimited. Very similar to some of the other stuff. It has that same color gradient of blue top, red bottom that's supposed to showcase the difference between space and Tatooine. It tells a story, right? Great piece of art. Next piece, we have here the Grand Admiral himself, Grand Admiral Thrawn. This is another piece of art that theoretically could be an event and they just size it down a little bit. Or this could be the leader that we're expecting. Given the pseudo confirmation that Thrawn is not the Vigilance villainy rare leader, the assumption here is that Thrawn could either be the command villainy rare leader, or I think a lot of people are leaning more towards the second one. Thrawn could be the cunning villainy rare leader. I don't disagree. There's an option for it available. In the card pool that we've seen right now, which is very, very poor, very foolish to judge upon, there are no cunning Imperial units. So you would potentially be bringing Thrawn as a cunning villainy leader, if that's what he is, to utilize the villainy units that are just villainy, and the villainy and neutral units that are in your basis color, and the neutral units in cunning, but specifically packing for the cunning events. And I think that could speak to Thrawn's ability to be cunning with events. Could be a cost reduction on events, potentially. We're spitballing ideas here. But there's also the possibility that we could just be seeing more Imperial units in cunning down the line that they haven't shown us. Remember, cunning month is coming up soon. Should be exciting once we get into that. It just depends on how they want to fit it. I think most people are thinking that the Emperor Palpatine is command, which we saw the image that could be for the leader. That's probably going to be the command leader image, which leaves Thrawn in a position of having art that's not used for a leader, or being the cunning villainy rare leader. And I'm on board with it. Just give me more cunning Imperial units. That's all I need. Cool dude. There's another image of him that's very familiar to people who are familiar with the covers of Thrawn's books in both Legends and in current Disney canon. That, I believe, is the unit art. I don't have a picture for that available at the moment. It's also just very blurry because someone took the box, swapped it, and like zoomed in on it and did a bunch of other stuff. But this is the first art segment we've had in a long time, and I hope you all enjoyed it because it's very neat to be able to see what is available for art before it becomes a card. On Wednesday, October 25th, FFG Live brought to us a lot of information about the competitive aspect of organized play for Star Wars Unlimited. Now, what's the difference? The difference is the first stuff was the casual things, our launch kits for the pre-release, our weekly play kits, and our store showdowns, which are slightly competitive, but still in the casual tier. This is the road to the Galactic Championship. And our two hosts for the day were everybody's favorite organized play program manager, Josh Massey, and Xander Tabler, officially titled today as guest host. Excellent job by the two of them for the stream. It was really fun to be able to go over. I did specifically state that Xander was able to show off two of his favorite cards, which are awesome. We're going to try to do this as quickly as we can. I'm going to be looking over here, so I do apologize if I'm not looking directly at the camera, but there's a lot of information to go off of, and there's also a graphic that we're going to switch over to here in just a second so you guys can see what's going on. But first, they do a recap of the TwitchCon weekend. That was Xander and Tyler that were there. They had a lot of fun. They did some cool demos. I believe it was Critical Bard and Talia we have vests. We're able to do Star Wars Unlimited demos live on Twitch. You can search TwitchCon stuff and probably find that pretty easily. One of the things that they did clarify for us was that the Hyperspace Luke and Vader promos are the only things that will be distributed as cards to events that they go to for the remainder of the time leading up to the release of the set. So don't expect anything different. It's just going to be the Hyperspace versions of our starter leaders. They did go over the number of leaders in the first set, which is officially 18. They talked about that during TwitchCon, but this is their like telling everybody that watches these things and pays attention to every little piece of information. It is officially 18, 2 exclusive to the starters and 16 in the boosters. We pretty much already had that figured out. 8 of each, 8 commons, 8 rares, 2 of each variation, and then the 2 starter leaders, Luke and Vader, yada yada, all the other different stuff. So what we go over today is, again, C3OP, connect, collect, compete. This is the compete aspect, but this is the actual like hyper competition, not hyper competition, but it is the competitive aspect. If you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, this is your Grand Prix and your Pro Tours. If you're familiar with Flesh and Blood, this is your Pro Tours, your Callings, your Battle Hardens, things like that. This is the lay down of what Star Wars Unlimited is going to be doing for competition. We have here this lovely graphic, which goes over the 3 pieces of competition that leads into the Galactic Championship. The Galactic Championship is basically Worlds, right? Planetary Qualifier, Sector Qualifier, Regional Qualifier. And those are in the correct order. So the competitive side is focused on players doing well and rewarding high-level competitive play. They will have a tournament point system that builds through the season. If you hit the TP threshold, which Josh gave us a fake number. It is not, whatever information came out of the stream was not the real number, and he specifically said that. It was just this: if you hit this threshold, which let's say is this number, you will be able to get into the Galactic Championship and participate in effectively the top end of Star Wars Unlimited. And this is really cool because it allows people who at all levels to be able to build. If you want to be the tournament grinder that goes to a bunch of different qualifiers or local events that is able to push yourself into the Galactic Championship, you're good. If you go out there and you win just one big event, you're in as well. It's the road to the Galactic Championship for many different people in many different ways. We do have here the Planetary Qualifier, which is our top label here. It's the most accessible of the competitive events. There's going to be no Planetary Qualifier for set 1, and they're going to start these with set 2. And the reason why is that most likely the set 1 meta is probably not going to be too great to work with. And I agree with this. A lot of set 1 metas for games end up being really bad. By starting the Planetary Qualifiers with set 2, it means that we have a larger meta of what's probably going to make up about 500 cards that'll be playable within the game itself. This is assuming that each set is the same size, which I do believe is going to be the case. And the reason why is because they want each set to be playable in limited, draft and sealed. So you need a large pool of cards to draw from for each set. So I wouldn't expect the set numbers to fluctuate too far from 250. So this is a store level event. It can be run by top level stores around the world. They're not worth as many points, but they will make sure that the winner of a Planetary Qualifier is guaranteed the invitation to be able to get into the Galactic Championship. That means that winning the Planetary Qualifier will hit that tournament point threshold pretty much no matter what. And ultimately, the amount of points spread out across the rest of the places. So usually when you see tournament points like this, you'll get points for top 8. You might not even get that high unless there's a large number of players in the Planetary Qualifiers. And this was something specifically that Josh talked about a lot. The points will scale based upon the amount of people in a tournament. So the Planetary Qualifier will have that top end level, but if you have, let's say for some random reason, you've got 100 people that show up to a Planetary Qualifier, that's going to be worth more points trickling down than, say, a 32-player Planetary Qualifier. This will be a single day event. They wanted to make sure that all the players that are just getting into TCGs have the option to be given time to start to get the feel for events at the competitive level, and that's another reason why they're starting Planetary Qualifiers with set 2, and then this was also the single set metas are kind of boring. That's Planetary Qualifiers are going to be very interesting. These are probably going to be done, I would say, depending depending on how large your community is and how many stores are participating, the top 1 to like 3 stores in the area will be able to host the Planetary Qualifiers, and this is likely done through measurement through product purchasing as well as tournament attendance. So if you really want to make sure that your local area gets a Planetary Qualifier, make sure you're buying local, make sure you participate in as many tournaments, local weekly events, and store showdowns as you possibly can, so that way FFG knows that your store is a hotbed for, or at least your area is a hotbed for Star Wars Unlimited and is worth putting a Planetary Qualifier down. Before we get on to the next section, the Sector Qualifier, there were a couple of questions here. Can you tell us if there's going to be a judge program? Yes, there will be. No more information at this time. Will they have demo events in store before the launch of the actual game? Short answer, yes. No more details as of yet. Will there be tournament software? Yes, it will be proprietary tournament software. We'll have more details later. They are really good about answering questions, but not giving us all the details, because those are things that are probably coming down the line in other streams, which I appreciate the initial, okay, we know they're thinking about this, but they don't have it fleshed out, or they're not at the point where they're ready to announce it just yet. So that's perfect. I appreciate that. So we're done with Planetary Qualifiers. Next, we have the Sector Qualifiers. This is the first standalone event that will be held by FFG. And by standalone, they mean you're not going to go to a convention to participate in these. They might take place in convention centers, but you're not going to go to Gen Con expecting to participate in a Sector Qualifier. A Sector Qualifier could be held in the Indianapolis Convention Center, but it's not going to be done at the same time as Gen Con. They want people to be able to participate in these events and not tie up their entire itinerary for a weekend missing out on a convention that's going on in that area. So you likely will never see these Sector Qualifiers done during big conventions like Dragon Con, Gen Con, Gamescom, those types of things, right? PAX. So the standalone means that players are going for that and that alone. They are going to be about 1 per month-ish. There wasn't really any information specifically. I think it was supposed to be, I'm not going to speculate on that. There was no information that I remember for how many Planetary Qualifiers will occur throughout the year and throughout sections of the season, but they did specifically say that there's going to be about 1 Sector Qualifier per month. There are less of these that occur, but they are worth more points, and those points will go down the line. They have more access to be able to do different things. They have better size and time limitations based upon what the Sector Qualifiers are going to be. They will be 2-day events. You're going to have 1 day of Swiss completely, and then the second day will be variable depending on how many people are in the event. If there's a large amount of people that are in a Sector Qualifier, you're going to see day 2 have at least a couple rounds of Swiss plus the top cut. If not, then day 2 will just be the top cut. With these standalone events, they're going to have space for side events and a prize wall. And I think that's really cool because it allows people who may not be comfortable playing in a Sector Qualifier, but they want to go and just have fun with their friends who are also going to the Sector Qualifiers, to be able to get in there and get access to playing the game with a bunch of other people that are also like-minded. So don't think that things like the Sector Qualifier and even the Galactic Championship are limited to just the high-level competitive players of Star Wars Unlimited. If you want to go to one of these things and just have fun, well, the YCSs do this all the time. There's a ton of side events that happen during Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series events that will allow you to be able to participate in a wide range of activities that will reward you things that you can get extra prizes from. It's going to be a cool experience regardless if it's anything like any of these other types of events that I've been to that have multiple things that are occurring at the same time. More questions here. They decided to interspice some questions into each of these sections. What's a top store? Conversations are being had with distribution partners and teams to work with the stores to pick stores that have the most accessibility to host an event. This is where I effectively am taking the buys the most amount of product, has the largest tournament attendance, and has the space to be able to hold a tournament of this caliber. I'm going to say this right now, Game Center in Minnesota is going to host Planetary Qualifiers, Sector Qualifiers, Regional Qualifiers, and might even be the location of the Galactic Championship. I don't know for sure. That last one is my speculation, but they'll definitely get one of each of these other ones because the Game Center is huge. Are they invitational? No. They are open entry, and you just show up, you sign up, you pay the fee, you show up, you play, you have a good time, right? The only event that is locked down is technically the Galactic Championship, but more on that later. Promo cards for event cons. Promo cards are all alternative arts and special treatments, participation at all of the levels, so that you're going to have one for showing up, you're going to have one for placing high, you're going to have one for winning, all those other different kinds of things. They want unique treatments for cards that exist in the pool based upon each of these events, all 4 of them total, but they will never plan for having mechanically unique cards in promos or events, which is really important because we don't want to have people getting power based upon just entering tournaments and getting mechanically unique cards, because that sucks. Bandai does that, and that's awful. So another interesting thing here is that the Galactic Championship has no set number of participants. It's based on the tournament participation and tournament points given during the season. So you're not going to have a limit of the top 64 players in the world play at the Galactic Championship. You will have, they will have an expanded list of people that are able to. So if you secure your invite, you're in, no matter how many other people participate in the tournament. So that means that the Galactic Championship could be as little as 100 people. I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to be a lot more. Could be as large as 1,000 people. It just depends on how many people have invites and how many people scored points to be able to hit those invites throughout a tournament season, which is the end of a Galactic Championship to the end of a Galactic Championship. So our next big event here, the Regional Qualifier, those are worth a whole lot more, and they're even fewer than Sector Qualifiers, potentially once every other month, once every 3 months. But these are spread across the world, and I would assume Sector Qualifiers are as well. They potentially could have a unique structure. There's more information about that in the future, but they're thinking about potentially it not always being constructed. Big question here: when are we going to see Sector Championships, Sector Qualifiers, and Regional Qualifiers? These are going to start in 2025, and I have over here on my list bolded, very interesting decision. I know why they're doing this. They're doing this so that way people have the opportunity to prepare, just like the PQs starting in set 2. The Galactic Championship, the road to a Galactic Championship isn't really going to start until 2025, and that's so that people get a handle on the meta and a handle on the game, and so the company can kind of get a handle on what they should expect for participation in these type of things. The Galactic Championship here is stated as invitation only with a caveat. It's going to be summerish every year, but the first GC is completely open. That means the first Galactic Championship that is held will be open. I don't believe that's going to be in 2025. I think that one will be in 2026, but I could be wrong. I reserve the right to change based upon information. The Galactic Championship is limited on space, but they'll make it as open as possible for the first Galactic Championship. Each Galactic Championship is a 3-day event. Day 1 hosts most of the players. Players that are at the top of the leaderboard in terms of tournament points and representation within events will be given a bye straight through to Day 2. So if you have an invitation, you're not guaranteed to be at the highest level of the Galactic Championship. You still need to be a grinder and a good player to get that Day 2 bye. And I've seen this used in other games, and it's very interesting because you have that Day 1 where you go like 7 to 9 rounds and you got to go like X2, X3 in order to be able to make it to Day 2. That's going to be a very similar thing here. So you're going to have a lot of people who are scraping, fighting, trying to get into that Day 2. And once you get to that Day 2, you're kind of secured in being able to do what you need to do for the rest of the tournament, right? Day 1, Swiss. Day 2, more Swiss. Day 3 will be the ultimate top cut. So you're not going to have any more Swiss on Day 3. It's just going to be top cut thereafter. Now, what kind of top cut? That's actually going to be very interesting because I haven't been seeing a lot of games do more than top 8. And if we have as many players as I think is going to happen in a Galactic Championship, I think we might even see something as large as a top 32 cut, which would be very interesting. The first Sector Qualifier for the following season is going to be hosted at Day 2 of the Galactic Championship to get people prepared for getting into the Galactic Championship of the following year. And they're also going to have more side events. So what that means is that if you scrub out Day 1 of the Galactic Championship, hop in that Sector Qualifier and try to get your invite for the next Galactic Championship season so you don't have to worry about it, right? Those types of events are great. Day 2 participants for the Galactic Championship will automatically gain points towards the next Galactic Championship to keep the train rolling. So that way anybody who is in Day 2 doesn't miss out on their opportunities to earn points from the Sector Championship that's happening the same day. It's not going to be a guaranteed Galactic Championship invite, but it's going to get you closer, which means you have less stress in things like the PQs, SQs, and RQs to get to the GC ultimately. Question: points. How do they acclimate? They accumulate, from the end of one GC to the beginning of the next one. So once that Sector Qualifier on Day 2 starts, that's when points are acclimating towards getting you to the next Galactic Championship. There will be an event locator on the Star Wars Unlimited website, starwarsunlimited.com. It's not available yet, but it will be there. The standard competitive format is going to be best of 3 wherever possible. Sideboards do exist, but they did not clarify how many cards will be in that sideboard. Round time is being tested internally. Again, more information later. Rotations will happen, again, more information later. Age divisions. This was an interesting question. They are an option that is available, but they're not going to be set right out of the gate. They're going to see where they're at with the game as it pertains to age brackets, much like Pokemon does, but they're not going to implement them just yet. Prize support exists. Information in a later date. A ban list and errata. This was an interesting discussion. They obviously think that their game is going to be perfect, just like every developer does. They even said this. They have a plan in case they're going to need ban lists and erratas, but they don't believe that they're going to need them basically at all. And honestly, that's probably the best way to think about it, is that they know that their internal team will not have as much testing time or testing experience playing everything as the thousands of players across the world. They have a plan. They are aware that it might be necessary, but they're not planning on needing it. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the candor there. Sector qualifiers will be open, but they're limited based upon the fire code and personnel limit of the building. So don't expect for some reason, a sector qualifier to be able to house 1,000 people unless the building itself can house 1,000 people. And holy crap, that would be a nightmare of a tournament. Just saying that right now. Anyway, there will be an article on the website covering all this information that I just gave you here. I'll put that in the link below. But a very important piece of information is here. Xander Tabler, guest host of this stream, got a mid-stream promotion. He is the new host of our FFG lives that deal with Star Wars Unlimited. As the game ramps up towards release, the developers and other personnel that are involved with the game are going to be needed to be able to do more work during the week, during when these streams will be able to be done. But Xander is one of the community managers. He might even actually be the ultimate community manager that deals with communications for this game. I should know that, but I don't. Sorry, Xander. Love you. But he was promoted to host, and he will be the host of all of these events. We will see, of all these streams, we will see other developers and Josh back. We will miss you, Josh. You did a great job, but the stream is definitely in good hands with Xander. He did an excellent job of hosting this last stream, and I'm excited to see more of what he brings to the table. And that's it. That's the FFG stream. I think the most interesting thing is that the high competitive events won't start until 2025, but don't be surprised if independent third-party associations will run events closer towards the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025. I know in the Discord they've been talking about having an event during the Las Vegas Open. If that does happen, I will be there. Otherwise, we'll see what ends up happening. Somebody might throw an event during Gen Con in 2024 just because it should have at least set 1-2. And even if all it is just a couple of companies bring together a bunch of boxes for people to play limited, I think that would actually be a really cool experience to just do a big limited, either sealed or draft event, 3 rounds, draft again, 3 rounds, draft again, or even just 2 3-round sections and then go into a finals with a new draft. Lots of details that can be worked out there, but we shall see. I'm certain you're going to see a big event at closer towards the end of 2024 once we have more information about what things are going to need. It just won't be necessarily FFG associated, but I wouldn't be surprised if FFG goes, hey, see that tournament over there? You guys should go to that and you should play, because here's some extra prizing. Stuff like that. So, and that's it. That's all she wrote for this episode of Star Wars Unlimited. We got our information on the road to the Galactic Championship. We've got a lot of really cool previews, including one of my favorite leader previews that we've seen so far. Lots of really cool things coming with the game. And even extra art from that article that was really cool. The Thrawn art is absolutely fantastic. It represents one of my favorite appearances of his in Star Wars Rebels. Just really cool things across the board. So if you have anything you want to discuss, leave a comment below. It helps out the channel. It helps out the videos. Watch another video if you have the opportunity. Otherwise, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitch, Twitter, Blue Sky, Mastodon, at RybackStun everywhere. I have a link tree that's linked somewhere, probably on Twitter, if you're interested in any of that. I expect another quiet week as we get into Cunning Month. As a whole, we'll probably have some creator previews. We'll probably have the start of the Cunning Month stuff, but they haven't advertised when the Cunning aspect preview stream is as of yet. So once we get that information, then we can start planning for what things are going. And then after November, it's the Wild West. December, January, February is going to be probably a line of bangers in terms of previews that we're going to see. I'm hoping a lot of really cool things come out towards us. Could be, again, quieter in December because that is the holiday month. I'd say probably probably about middle of December to the end of December, we might get less or some automated stuff, maybe even a larger focus on content creators giving out previews. But as it stands, we're well on track to be able to have a super awesome release for Star Wars Unlimited in 2024, a super awesome beginning of the competitive circuit in the beginning of 2025, and maybe even some third-party events run in 2024. That's fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you who take time out of your day to watch these videos. And with that, I will see you in the stars.